This week, we're diving back into the Diddy trial, and believe it or not, we are already at week 6. The prosecution said that they're going to wrap up soon, but not before we get into some crazy details. More time receipts, more text messages, more unanswered calls, even more details about Cassie's black eye right before her movie premiere in 2016. We even find out about a lump sum of money that Diddy had to pay back to a hotel because of the damages done to that hotel during a freak off. We'll hear from Diddy's final assistant during week 6 also, who invokes his Fifth Amendment rights, and he's going to tell us everything from the moment he got arrested for having some of Diddy's cocaine allegedly in his possession to the time that he was hired. So, this and more on this episode of the Point of No Return True Crime Podcast with Amanda and Michelle. I'm Amanda. Here is a compilation of this week's TikToks from our TikTok account. This episode will be a little shorter than we've seen in the past weeks because, interestingly enough, of course, we know that this week we recognized Juneteenth, so we did have a day off from court with that. And then there was another day where a juror got sick, so court was held off for that day. So we only have about 3 days worth of testimony this week versus our normal 5. So without further ado, let's just jump right in. Here's the Point of No Return, the Diddy trial, week 6. So day 25 of the Diddy trial is a straight text message day. It provides a lot of messages from characters we've heard from all throughout this trial. Mia, Diddy, Jane, Cassie, Christina Karam, his security detail, D-Rock, and so many others. These are the people that they are trying to all bind together in order to prove their case. The prosecution is wrapping up their case and the defense is getting ready to take over in just a few days. But before they do, the prosecution is making sure that they hit all the last final points that they can by proving that RICO, as well as the sex trafficking case, as well as they can. So here was one of the text messages that stood out to me today. It was from one of the escorts that Cassie and Diddy used in 2013. His name is Santiago. Diddy would hit up Cassie and ask Cassie, hey, do you want to have a freak off post Christmas? Mind you, the date was January 11th. I don't even know why he's bringing up Christmas at this point. It's almost MLK Day. Anyhow, he says, do you want to celebrate Christmas? She says, LOL, yeah. She hits up Santiago. Santiago then says, okay, he's interested in the freak off. They agree on a location, which is a hotel. And then after that, he texts her and says, I'm a bit more sexually excited than last time. I also know the rules. Dress casual nice and bring baby oil, right? So if you don't know by now, I'm Amanda from the Point of No Return, a true crime podcast, and we're covering the Diddy trial. This is week 6 of the Diddy trial. If you want anything from weeks 1 through 5, there are tons of video below this. However, if you want it all packaged up into one, we have several weeks of episodes, weeks 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, on anywhere you stream podcasts. You can listen to all the week's wrap-ups anywhere that you want to listen. Okay, so juror number 6, remember we talked about him last week? He was actually dismissed today. He was a 41-year-old man from the Bronx. He worked at a correctional facility, but they said that he was kind of dishonest basically about where he lived. But he ended up moving halfway into this trial, so they replaced him with another juror, which was an alternate. So the new juror is a 57-year-old white man who's an accountant from Westchester County. The interesting thing is the 41-year-old black man, I'm sure that the defense is really sad to see him go because they also said that he was a fan of 90s hip hop. So he might have worked in their favor. So our first witness is a paralegal from the U.S. Attorney's Office, and she is going to read and review a lot of text messages between Diddy and some of the people that he worked with, mainly Christina Karam. Okay, so they would find text messages where he would instruct her to set up hotel rooms before he arrived. Also, prosecutors would then look at text messages from Diddy's assistants, and these are messages that Christina Karam would give her assistants or Diddy's assistants to then set up the rooms as well. She would also have in her text messages that Diddy would give them large quantities of cash. So again, remember a few weeks ago, I said they keep bringing up Christina Karam's name because they want to establish that criminal enterprise portion. So when you're talking about a RICO, a lot of people in the comments have said like, oh, we haven't seen anything about a criminal enterprise, or we're not seeing anything where it's like a gang of people. You don't need a large group of people for a criminal enterprise. You need one other person. Christina Karam. There was also another text message where he's asking Christina Karam to get $4,000. And in that message, she is asking her workers, assistants, to get $4,000 in cash to ensure that one of the male escorts has money, so he's paid, and that the money is in the hotel room when Diddy arrives. Diddy also asked his employees to pick up drugs for him in 2022. This is something that we also knew. He also asked some of his girlfriends to do for him. So they will also review messages that were between three people: Diddy, Christina Karam, as well as Diddy's head of security, Fahim Muhammad. And this was from November 24th, 2022. So in these messages, KK is asking P. Diddy exactly what needs to be picked up before flying to Miami. And he indicates he's asking for 15 pills of Molly. They also read another message where Cassie texts Christina Karam in 2017 saying nobody deserves to be pulled by their hair. And so now they're also indicating that Christina Karam knew about the abuse that Diddy was giving out to the girlfriends. There's also going to be another message where Christina Karam and Jane were in an exchange, and Jane is claiming that Diddy is going to expose her by sending her sex tapes over to Jane's baby's father if she does not comply with what he says. Jane wrote to her and said that she was traumatized, but Christina Karam said that she hadn't seen him in 2 days and that she was going to try to get in contact with him. They also showed us a record of Diddy calling Mia several times, 6 times. And remember, Mia also testified about this in her testimony in court. She said that Diddy called her 6 times, begging and pleading, basically saying like, oh, I don't mean to blow up your phone. However, I just want to clear some things up. I want to get some things straight. She also testified that this was a thing. However, the paralegal today in court said the same thing per these text messages. 2 videos were also shown today during court. One of them being the duration of 11 minutes long, the other one being 40 minutes long. However, we're still unsure as to what was on these videos. My assumption is a freak off. If this is true, this would be the first freak off that they actually showed in video in court. They've seen a lot of photos and still shots of freak offs. However, they have never seen a full-blown video of a freak off in court. The next witness is DeLeassa Penland, who is a special agent. And they said that she reviewed a lot of Diddy's charts and data, which happened to be a lot of his flight itineraries and things like that, but also flights that he booked. So there was one particular one from 2009. And if we remember, there was one escort that Cassie said her and Diddy utilized a lot, an escort by the name of Jules. She said they utilized Jules a lot because she was comfortable with Jules. So in 2009, there was a text message thread that went back and forth where Diddy paid for a flight for Jules to come to a party for the weekend. They are bringing this up because they also want to show, again, sex trafficking. That is one of Diddy's charges, and they want to bring that up and make that very clear that he was transporting sexual, what's the word, y'all? I don't know why I'm blanking. That he was transporting sex workers. Thank you. Brain just tapped in. That he was transporting sex workers or escorts across state lines, wherever, in order to have these freak offs, wild king nights, hotel nights, whatever you want to call it. Cassie has admitted to this. Jane has admitted to this. They're talking about from LA to Miami, Miami to Atlanta, wherever the case may be, they are pulling these records out. So DeLeassa will be back on the stand for day 26. The prosecution is set to wrap up everything by the end of this week. So we're in for some more treats, and we'll see what the defense has. In 2012, Diddy would pay $46,000 for damages done to the penthouse at the Intercontinental in New York City. I'm Amanda from The Point of No Return. This is the remainder of what happened during week 6 of the Diddy trial. I know that we didn't do back-to-back videos this week. This was an interesting week. As we know, it was the celebration of Juneteenth this week. So court was out one day, and then another day this week, also a juror got sick. So court ended a little early. So we really only had like 2.5-ish, 3-ish days of court this week. So I'm just going to wrap up everything here, and then we'll go from there. So the last time we checked in, DeLeassa Penland, who was one of the special agents for the U.S. Attorney's Office, she was on the stand, and she's continuing her testimony now. So we're going to swing it back to the Intercontinental LA in 2016. But a lot of what we're going to see this week, honestly, is a lot of what you've already seen. And it'll just be a reiteration of text messages, calls, events that we've already seen. So some of this might be stuff from the Intercontinental, things that happened before or after with Cassie's premiere, Diddy calling or texting her, things of that nature, text messages of freak-offs, messages that they had with some of their escorts. By them, I mean Cassie and Diddy, so on and so forth. So if some of this stuff is like, oh, I've heard this before, let's just say that it's a refresher, but this is what happened during the 6th week of the trial this week. So there were some phone calls that were shared during this time, and it said from 11:28 a.m. For about 10 minutes or so, Diddy called Cassie 8 consistent times, back to back to back. This was the same day as the hotel incident when he beat her up that we've all seen on camera. And then it says that at the same time, around 11:35, on Cassie's phone, there is receipt of her taking a picture of herself. In that picture, she has a swollen lip. She's also seen wearing sunglasses. And she testified during her testimony that she took them in the car as she was leaving the hotel after Diddy had beat her up. He texted her some more saying, you're going to abandon me? Please call me. He even lied and said, wow, you finna get me locked up. He was not about to get locked up. She then responds to him saying, I have a premiere Monday for the biggest thing I've ever done in my life. I have a black eye and a fat lip. It was time for me to go. You are sick for thinking it's okay to do what you've done. Please stay as far as you can away from me. He then gets KK, Christina Karam, D-Rock, his security, as well as him to call her incessantly so many more times after this, and she still doesn't answer. She answers one time during this exchange, and it says for 34 seconds, and that's it. And then they call her some more and some more after that. Okay, another thing that they will bring up was travel. Why is travel important? Because of sex trafficking, also prostitution against state lines, or across state lines, should I say. So, Jules, remember Jules was one of the escorts that Cassie and Diddy used during freak-offs. Cassie testified that she had a comfortability level with Jules, and so they used him often. So in 2009, there were records that indicated flights and hotels that were paid for by Diddy's American Express card, and that they were used for Jules' hotel room. There were also text messages that were released, and you can see the exchanges between Diddy and Jules actually getting like flown out for the freak off to happen, so on and so forth. In 2013, they had a freak off with a man by the name of Dave. Dave would also get his flight and hotel accommodations paid for. The credit card statement for those charges were actually paid off by 5 different bank accounts. Some of those actually included links to Bad Boy Entertainment and Combs Enterprises. This is important because remember, if he paid for this with his own personal money, that's one thing. But if he used any of his corporate money, his businesses, anything like that, that is tied into his likeness, into who he is as P. Diddy Enterprises, whatever, indicating that his business is paying for these freak-offs, which in turn are really illegal because he's having sex with prostitutes and escorts, which in the state of New York is illegal. Okay, so remember on the beginning of the week, we had a question was, are the videos that they're showing them of freak-offs, we got confirmation? Yes, it is. They again saw more freak-offs during court this week. Of course, the public isn't going to see these, but the jurors did see more freak-off footage this week. So during day 26 of this trial, which is the last day of week 6, we are hearing from Brendan Paul, who is also one of Diddy's former assistants. He would invoke his Fifth Amendment rights by signing an immunity agreement because much like Diddy's other assistants that also invoked their Fifth Amendment rights, he was wheeling and dealing drugs and doing some other stuff for Diddy. So he's saying, hey, whatever I say, y'all can't get me for while I'm up here on the stand as long as I don't perjure myself. So he signed an immunity agreement. Saying all of that to say a lot of sources have called him potentially Diddy's drug mule. Why? Because in March of 2024, he was arrested for possession of cocaine before getting on a flight with Diddy. This was the same day that the Diddy raids happened and that Diddy was going to the islands with his daughters for vacation. So he started working for Diddy in 2022. And of course, his last day of employment was in March of 2024 when he got arrested. He said that the cocaine was in his Goyard bag for personal assistant duties. So he has a Goyard bag, but interestingly enough, his starting salary is what? Y'all give me a guess. What do you think? $75,000 when he started. He said eventually he worked his way up to $100,000. This is in 2022. I can't believe this. And then working under these type of conditions. He said that sometimes he would typically work 80 to 100 hours a week. He said that he would usually work between 4 to 6 days a week. He was always on call for $75,000. Much like Diddy's other assistants, he also testified that he would stay awake for days at a time, specifically while Diddy was producing his latest album, the Love album. And he said he would stay up because he would take Adderall, sometimes cocaine. But he also was fired 2 or 3 times by Diddy, which is something that we've also heard by some of his other assistants. One time, he says that sticks out of his memory was in November or October of 2023, and he said that he forgot Diddy's Lululemon fanny pack when they were going outside for a walk. Diddy then told him, "I don't want to see your face. Call KK and tell her you're fired." You do it. Why would I call somebody and tell them that I'm fired? However, when he talked to KK the next time, she told him, "Hey, it's cool, lay low." And then he set up a freak off for him, and he said after that, him and Diddy was cool. It was like the incident never happened. Some of the other things he said that he did during his job were travel logistics. He also helped Diddy with his fitness workouts, meal plans, and music-related needs. He also would pack marijuana joints in Diddy's garage. Okay, so if you're wondering why he had the cocaine in his bag or how it got in his bag, he said that he was sweeping Diddy's room before they left, and he forgot that the cocaine was in his bag. Brendan also testified that during his time working for Diddy, he also saw him use drugs, including cocaine, ketamine, ecstasy, marijuana, the ones that we've heard of before. And he said that other times he also did seem high. He also would ask him or other assistants to purchase drugs for him, including buying marijuana at least once every 2 months. And this would be in about 16 ounces, and the cost for that would be $4,200. And the person that he would purchase this from was actually one of Diddy's former assistants. And whenever he would receive these drugs, they would go directly into Diddy's Gucci pouch or his little Gucci zip bag. We've seen this Gucci bag because when he was arrested in New York, that Gucci bag was one of the things in the evidence photos. Also, we've heard about this Gucci bag from a number of his other assistants. He also testified about Wild King nights. He said that after the Cassie lawsuit, they no longer did Wild King nights inside of hotel rooms. But here, listen to this. Here was the setup for Wild King nights: baby oil, alcohol, small toiletries, and extra sheets and towels. He also said that they shared a list amongst the different assistants, and then they would set up different ways and different things to get it all together for the different freak-offs. He also said he would often purchase Wild King night or freak-off materials with his own money, and then he would get reimbursed. Sometimes he said they would also give him cash from Diddy's security, and it might be in the amount of $5,000, and this would be for Wild King nights. He also would have to help clean up during these times, but he also said for sanitary reasons, he would wear gloves. The room would be in disarray. He would have to put towels and sheets into piles, also empty bottles of baby oil and liquor he would have to throw away. They also asked him, "Why didn't you just tell on Diddy when the drugs were found in your possession?" He said he had loyalty to him. However, the drug charges were eventually dropped because he said that he had a really good lawyer. Brendan said he had a really good lawyer and that he went to about 20-something drug classes and he took some drug tests and he was good. Okay, y'all. So the Diddy trial is about to come to an end. The prosecution said that they should be wrapping any day now, and then the defense is going up. The defense said they're only going to be on the stand for about 2 to 5 days. So after that, then it's kicked back to the jury and they're in deliberation. So we're going to be seeing some kind of decision sometime soon. So stick with me. The rest of this will be on our next week's episode of the Point of No Return podcast. We got some of Diddy's text messages. And some of them are from his assistants. Some of them are from Christina Karam. Some of them are from Jules, who him and Cassie used to hook up with. This specific message is between Jules and somebody else. I'm assuming it's Diddy, but they're not saying who the other person is. So I'm going to blow this up so y'all can see it a little bit. But in this message in particular, they had already scheduled Jules's flight accommodations. They flew him out. They've already had one little freak off. But Jules is having a quick turnaround time because he's like, I got to get home for something else tomorrow. So if you could fly me out, that would be great. And so then the device owner said, okay, I had you leaving Friday, but I'll change now. That is who I'm assuming is Diddy. The next person is Jules. Blah, 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 blah. They've already done one freak off. The device owner then writes back and says, I'm trying to get you out tonight now. All good. I'll let you know. And you should come up in an hour. This man is asking for his flight arrangements. You haven't even gotten me my flight arrangements to go home. You booked me a one-way, but you're telling me to come back to the room in an hour? Anyway, real crazy. He said, Jules then writes back and says, I need to be back by 12 noon Friday. I just need a little bit more rest than 1 hour. Is that okay? I haven't slept in almost 2 days. You guys are rabbits. Diddy had these people freaking off for hours. Even the escort is like, chill, baby. Y'all just had me. But I guess he did want to be nice to the escorts, because he did write him back and say, LOL, okay, hit me when you wake. Sorry, bro, no stress. You let me know. Okay, so I'm also reading these in no particular order. This is just so you can see some other things. These are from his assistants. This was in a group chat. You can see clearly it highlights, just pack 30 bottles of BO. That would be baby oil. Then they ask about, we need more bottles of BO and AG. That would be Astroglide. So you can see that they are dealing with his freak off material so much that at this point they've even abbreviated the words. They are calling it BO and AG as if it's an attorney general and body odor. I'm thrown off. At first I was a little confused, but I'm like, what is going on here? We also get insight into what Jane needed during her freak-offs to let them go successfully. So Christina Karam checks in with a group of the PAs, and she says, checking in to see how setup is going, how much longer do y'all need? They said that they'll be done in about 30 minutes. So this is what Jane needed for the hotel. She wanted new outfits maybe, so they're buying her clothes for these freak-offs, which one of the assistants did testify to last week. Shorts for Diddy in a size large, fruits, shakes, juices, and yeah, they're keeping the room fully stocked. There was also another text message that I'm going to show you now. So also they're getting Positive Energy tea as well as Tate's Bake Shop cookies. And as you can see, the PAs are lining up. They're all replying. It's two different ones at this point in time replying about the different materials that they're getting for a Wild King night, just to make sure that the room is set up properly. Then to me, the plot thickens. So they're getting him some candles. They said that he likes like Palo Santos or whatever. That's like the fragrance that he likes. You know, he wants it here, he wants it there. However, this man is using Diptyque candles for his freak-offs. Diptyque? Huh? Why would you be using Diptyque? That... For some reason, when they said he was using candles, I was just like imagining him going to the dollar store, like getting them to pick up cheap shit because he's using it so often. But I'm like, you're using Diptyque, you're using $100 something candles for freak-offs? Ay. And in a lot of these messages, what you'll see, the abbreviation is PD. If you see PD, that stands for P. Diddy. That's P. Diddy, PD. And that's what his assistants and other people will call him in a lot of these text messages. So in this one, it says, Jane tonight, thank God. Yep. Here's the continuation of that, though. This message gets crazy. Viewer discretion. So then the message goes on to say at her place, and then somebody else responds back and says, okay, I need to refresh her bag of DICKS's and send to her. So they were also in charge of Jane's sex toys. She needs the sex luggage and lights. Then also they're talking about be toiletry bag ready, please. They're getting her whole setup for her as well. And this one I think you guys will find rather interesting. I know I did. It just also corroborates the story about Jane saying that she hung out with Diddy one night for her birthday, and then he went on to take Young Miami to Turks and Caicos. So this was a message from Christina Karam to her assistants, and she was telling them that she was going to be leaving out of town for a few days. However, P. Diddy was aware, and that he was also potentially going to be out of pocket for a few of those days. So here's what the schedule looked like. I will say that a lot of this stuff that is on the schedule is not necessarily in a regular day's work of what, you know, the average person would think would be in a day's work that's not doing sex work. So it says various meeting and work things at all the houses. Then we'll have an outline in his schedule, blah, 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 blah. Jade flying out Tuesday evening. Who's Jade? I don't know. Maybe one of his other girlfriends. Then it says Wednesday finance meeting. Jane arrives early Wednesday morning, going to a hotel. PD doing dinner with Jane for her birthday. Then they have to work on the reservations. There will be a Wild King night at the hotel. Then they're also saying that after they get ready for that he is going to stay there all day. Thursday, there is no work because the Wild King night will then continue. The assistants are also up to looking for Jane a birthday gift. So by Friday, Jane will leave town around noon, and P. Diddy that night will go to a video shoot, okay? By the time Saturday comes around, Jane is finally out of Dodge, and Diddy will fly out with Young Miami to Turks and Caicos for her birthday. Then only one assistant will go. They'll set it all up. He'll be in Turks and Caicos until that Tuesday, and then he will fly back to Miami. They're also saying that Diddy should bring fun Valentine's Day things there and all this other stuff. So you can also kind of tell, because obviously she's getting the direction from P. Diddy to give to the assistants, right? Because she's his chief of staff. So to me, this also means that he was very intentional, which we already know, about how he treated Miami versus how he treated Jane. And even in these messages, it shows very clearly, because it's like, oh yeah, set up the room for a hotel night for Jane's birthday and get her a gift, whatever that might be. However, Young Miami is getting taken all the way to Turks and Caicos and find Valentine's Day stuff on top of celebrating her birthday. So that text message was very interesting to me. There's more messages out there. If you Google search them, you can find them. They're not hard to find. But there are about 45 pages worth of messages that were released yesterday by the prosecution. And some of them are a pretty interesting read. A lot of them in the more recent years, from 2022 up until 2024. So if you want to take a look at it, just Google it and go ahead and take a look. But we have a lot in store, like I said, for week 6. So stay tuned, because there's so much more to come. These text messages were crazy. The fact that they're cleaning off her sex toys, though, really threw me for a loop. I don't know why I'm so surprised at half the shit I hear about this damn case. But what are y'all thinking? Right now, where the prosecution, what am I talking about? Right now, where the prosecution stands, how do y'all feel about the case? Do y'all think that they have delivered what they need to? What's up with the burden of proof? Because that's the burden is on them. Have they proven their case beyond a reasonable doubt? What do you guys think? Talk to me in the comments. Let me know. And we will be back next week.